Welcome to today's explainer, the praise checklist, overcoming self-hatred through micro-achievements. Today, we're diving into a deeply personal, honestly transformative journey about changing the very foundation of how we validate ourselves. If you've ever felt completely trapped in a cycle of being your own worst critic, well, this explainer is definitely for you. We're going to look at source material from someone who hit absolute rock bottom, just totally overwhelmed by a mountain of self-hatred, and how they managed to climb out of it using the most unexpectedly simple tool. Have you ever just hit the end of your day, collapsed into bed, and felt completely crushed by all your daily shortcomings? Maybe you didn't finish your to-do list. Maybe you broke a diet you swore you'd stick to. Or maybe you just felt like you weren't enough. You know the feeling, right? Well, the person behind our source material lived in that exact mental space for years, spending every single night agonizing over their failures. But here's the thing. True, lasting mental change doesn't start with some grand, sweeping overhaul of your life. As they discovered, the heart begins to change by counting one thing you could do rather than what you couldn't. Section 1, the spiral of self-hatred, when your mind attacks your body. Okay, let's dive right into this. To really understand the cure here, we first have to understand the disease. Their darkest period was defined by a self-loathing so intense that it didn't just stay in their head, it literally began to wage war on their physical body. The emotion of self-hatred is quiet, but it reliably and undeniably wears down your spirit and eventually your health. I mean, we're talking about waking up almost every single day feeling sick, followed by unexplained vomiting for years. Their body was in such a state of chronic distress that they actually developed a severe case of shingles that spread across their entire body. And mentally, the outside world became a total nightmare. Just opening the front door made them feel like they couldn't breathe. They developed an extreme fear of other people staring at them, a crippling agoraphobia. But what's truly heartbreaking is the daily cycle that fed into all this pain. They would buy English study materials and just abandon them a few days later. They'd start a strict diet, only to quit 3 days in. And because their mindset was so fragile, a single daily mistake, just one tiny stumble, made their entire existence feel like a total failure. They equated a small misstep with a complete lack of willpower, basically assuming this lack of perfection was a permanent reflection of their entire worth. Section 2. The trap of external validation, seeking worth in the wrong places. Now, when you're in that much internal pain, what do you usually do? You look for an escape hatch. Desperate to fix this internal agony, they tried to become someone else entirely. They were totally consumed by an inferiority complex, convinced that if they could just alter their external circumstances, the internal pain would magically vanish. They fell for the ultimate illusion of external validation. The expectation was that if they could just endure extreme diets for weight loss, acquire super difficult qualifications, or make a bunch of money, it would magically grant them high status and finally make them worthy of love. They were essentially treating self-worth as a transaction. If these conditions are met, then I'll be accepted. But the reality? It was devastating. Focusing entirely on external conditions made them completely lose sight of their intrinsic value. Every single time they achieved something, it offered only a temporary sense of relief before just fading away. Ultimately, this constant, desperate grasping for outside approval only further eroded their self-esteem. It left them staring in the mirror, wanting to deny their very existence. Section 3. Birth of the praise checklist, reframing the daily routine. But here's where the story pivots. A mundane, everyday organizational tool unexpectedly became their mental health lifeline. And the crazy part? It wasn't a sudden epiphany on a mountaintop. It happened right at their desk, with a basic piece of paper and a pen. So their old method of organizing life was this suffocating minute-by-minute schedule. They were totally obsessed with checking off tasks, driven entirely by obligation and pressure. Checking a box brought a fleeting sense of relief, sure, but absolutely zero actual fulfillment. It was a management tool that had morphed into an instrument of self-torture. So they decided to completely change how they used that same pen and paper. They created the praise checklist. Instead of listing out endless obligations, they spent just a few minutes before bed writing down what went right. Things like, I finished reading this book today, or I left work on time without doing overtime. By writing down things they actually accomplished, they began to realize, wait a minute, I am actually doing things right. That tiny shift, taking just a few minutes at night to document success instead of failure, began lifting the immense, suffocating mental weight they had carried for years. Section 4. Lowering the bar for praise. The magic of micro-achievements. Now, as with any new habit, they eventually hit a wall. After a while, they kind of ran out of big things to praise. They found themselves writing down the exact same accomplishments every single day and struggled to find new things to celebrate. But actually, this struggle led directly to the most crucial revelation of this entire explainer. To keep the habit alive, they had to totally redefine what a win even was. So the crucial point is this. They realized they had to actively stop demanding large, impressive outcomes from themselves. Instead, they began noticing tiny, almost imperceptible positive actions in their day. And most importantly, they wrote them down with absolutely no judgment. They realized that if they just lowered the bar for what counted as an achievement, praiseworthy moments were actually scattered everywhere throughout their day. You literally just have to change your lens. Let me give you some incredibly specific, mundane examples, just to completely shatter your preconceived notions of success. They started praising themselves for simply tasting their food slowly and mindfully. They gave themselves a mental gold star just for discovering a funny YouTube video. They even felt a sense of accomplishment just from using up all the ink in a pen, which, let's be honest, is weirdly satisfying, right? They praised themselves for taking a quick moment to genuinely enjoy the feeling of sunshine on their skin. By dropping the standard of what constitutes an achievement, they proved it isn't something you have to desperately hunt down. If you train your eyes to see it, accomplishment comes to you in the smallest, most ordinary moments. Section 5, Developing a Happiness Constitution, a Gradual Transformation. And this brings us to the ultimate payoff. We're going to look at how this simple, daily habit of finding micro-wins fundamentally rewired their brain over time. They transitioned from a state of constant self-hatred into developing what they call a happiness constitution, basically a natural disposition geared toward finding joy. They realized something profound during this process. The ability to feel and receive happiness matters so much more than the size of the event itself. By practicing the praise checklist, they became far more sensitive to gratitude and positive emotion. It's honestly like working out a muscle. Before, their failure noticing muscle was huge and their happiness receiving muscle had completely atrophied. By noting the sunshine and the used up pens, they organically shifted away from that exhausting habit of counting failures. They learned that the color of your entire day changes based solely on how you choose to receive and perceive the little events within it. But I want to be absolutely clear here and make sure we remind ourselves of this important fact. This transformation isn't some dramatic overnight fix. You don't just write down one microachievement and wake up magically cured of all self-doubt. No way. This was a gentle, daily practice. It's the slow, steady accumulation of these tiny, small achievements that eventually builds an unbreakable foundation of confidence. It's about taking a time every single day to overwrite the old habit of counting what you couldn't do with a brand new habit of counting what you did do. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this powerful, actionable prompt. Look, you don't need to force yourself to be perfectly positive all the time, but on those really tough nights, when the self-criticism is loud and the day felt like a total loss, I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing you accomplished today? It doesn't matter how small. Pick up a pen tonight, write it down, put a circle next to it, and start your own healing process. That one single word of praise might just be the power you need to live well tomorrow.